Sua was born under a calm sky in the quiet village of Idera, where the rivers flowed gently and the trees whispered old stories. From the moment she took her first breath, the elders said she carried something rare, purity, like the first rain after harmattan. She never knew her parents. Her mother, they said, had died giving birth to her. Her father. No one ever spoke of him. But Sua never felt alone. She was raised by her grandmother, Mama Tenny, a strong, sharp-tongued woman with hands like bark and a heart as soft as yam porridge. Everyone respected Mama Tenny. She had delivered many babies in the village, settled fights between neighbors, and helped young girls stay on the right path. Sua, she would often say, holding the girl's face in her warm palms, "You are my last gift from the gods. Your body is a temple, your heart a treasure. Protect them both." And Sua listened. She grew up humble, helping her grandmother in the garden, fetching water from the stream, grinding pepper on the stone. She wore her innocence like a cloth, clean and simple. The boys in the village admired her from a distance, but none dared to come close. They knew Mama Tenny was always watching, eyes sharp like a hawk. But it wasn't just her beauty that drew people to her. It was her kindness. When an old woman dropped her basket, Sua would rush to help. When a child cried in the market, Sua would sing a song to comfort them. She carried herself with grace and never spoke with pride. As the years passed, Sua blossomed into a stunning young woman. Her skin glowed like polished mahogany. Her eyes sparkled with quiet wisdom. At 18, she was the talk of Idera. Mothers whispered her name when they prayed for good daughters. Fathers wished for sons who could one day marry someone like her. And then came Aramu. Aramu was the village blacksmith. Broad-shouldered, calm-eyed, and soft-spoken. His hands, always stained with coal and iron, could craft tools that lasted generations. But beneath his strength was a heart that beat only for Sua. He had watched her grow, admired her silence, respected her values. He didn't chase her like the other boys. He waited. Patiently. One day, dressed in his finest wrapper, Aramu came to Mama Tenny's compound with his uncles and elders. "I come with good intentions," he said, kneeling respectfully. "I want to marry your granddaughter." Mama Tenny narrowed her eyes. "Do you know who she is?" she asked. "I do," Aramu replied firmly. "She is a jewel. I don't just want her beauty. I want her heart, her strength, and her spirit. I will honor her." Sua stood behind the curtain, heart pounding. She had always seen Aramu as a good man. Not loud, not flashy. Just steady. Reliable. Like a tree that does not shake when the storm comes. Later that night, Mama Tenny turned to Sua. "My child," she said gently, "do you accept?" Sua nodded, a soft smile blooming on her lips. "Yes, Mama. I believe he is a good man." And so, the preparations for the wedding began. The village came alive with excitement. Women sang as they wove colorful osok. Men carved wooden chairs for the feast. Children ran around carrying palm fronds. The elders planned the blessings and the songs. But as the drums beat louder with joy, fate had already begun to stir its pot in silence. The village of Idera was buzzing with joy. Everyone spoke of the coming wedding between Sua and Aramu. It wasn't just about two people joining together, it was about love that felt honest, rare, and deeply blessed by the ancestors. Women gathered daily in Mama Tenny's compound to help with wedding plans. Colorful fabrics were laid out. Cowries and beads were sorted for the bride's outfit. Even the village drummers began practicing special songs for the big day. Mama Tenny smiled more than usual. "I prayed for this day," she said, as she sat on her stool, watching Sua try on her head wrap. "To see you dressed as a bride, to see your heart safe with a man who values you." But the joy didn't last long. One morning, as Sua prepared pap in the kitchen, she heard a loud thud from the backyard. She ran outside and found Mama Tenny collapsed near the water pot. Her breathing was shallow, and her hands trembled. Panic rushed through Sua's chest. With the help of neighbors, she carried Mama Tenny into the house. They called the village healer, Baba Ige, who arrived quickly, holding his bag of herbs. He checked her pulse, felt her chest, and shook his head. "This is no ordinary sickness," he said. "She needs to go to the hospital in the city. My herbs cannot fight this." Sua's heart dropped. The nearest hospital was 2 towns away. She had never even been that far. Aramu, hearing the news, rushed to her side. "We'll go together," he said, holding her trembling hand. "We'll get her there. She'll be fine." By evening, they had reached the city hospital. The waiting room was filled with noise, crying children, nurses shouting names, machines beeping. Everything felt too loud, too fast. After hours, the doctor came out. His eyes were serious. "Your grandmother has a failing heart," he said. "There is a chance to save her, but she needs surgery. The cost is 400,000 naira. And it must be done within days." Sua felt like the floor had dropped beneath her. 400,000. That was more money than she'd ever seen in her entire life. She turned to Aramu, hope in her eyes. "I have some savings," Aramu said slowly, "but most of it went into the wedding. I can gather maybe 80,000. Sua nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I'll find the rest." In the days that followed, Sua ran from house to house, begging friends, distant relatives, and neighbors. She sold her clothes, jewelry, even her late mother's tiny gold earrings. But no matter how hard she tried, the money didn't come close. At night, she sat by Mama Tenny's hospital bed, holding her hand, whispering prayers. "Don't leave me, Mama," she cried softly. "Just a little more time. I'll find a way." Mama Tenny opened her eyes now and then, smiling weakly. "Don't cry, Sua. I've lived a full life." But Sua refused to give up. With 5 days left before the deadline, her strength began to crack. She had tried everything. Hope was fading. But fate wasn't done testing her. The next evening, her phone rang. A deep voice on the other end spoke calmly. "Sua, I heard about your grandmother. I can help you, but we must talk in private." It was Chief Depo, a man Sua had always avoided. Her heart skipped. She knew his name. She knew his ways. And she knew the cost of the help he was about to offer. Sua stood frozen, phone still in her hand, as the last words from Chief Depo echoed in her mind. "We must talk in private." Her breath caught. Everyone in Idera knew Chief Depo. He was from the neighboring town of Ojud, a powerful man with wealth, land, and wives in different villages. He was also known for something else, his hunger for young girls. Stories whispered about him like the wind in the trees. Girls he helped would later disappear or return home broken. Sua had always avoided his gaze during village festivals. He had tried to speak to her once when she was younger, but Mama Tenny had stood between them like a lioness. "Not my granddaughter," she had said with fire in her eyes. And Depo had never dared approach again. Until now. That night, Sua couldn't sleep. She sat in the hospital corridor, knees pressed to her chest, eyes red from tears. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Mama Tenny lying pale on the bed, breathing slowly, sleeping further away. The next morning, she told Aramu about the call. "He said he wants to help," she said, voice trembling. "But I know what kind of man he is." Aramu's eyes darkened. "You won't go near him," he said firmly. "I'll find more money. I'll sell my tools, my bicycle, whatever I have left." Sua nodded, but deep inside, she knew it wouldn't be enough. Time was running out. Later that evening, she stepped outside the hospital for some air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in deep orange. Her phone buzzed again. It was Chief Depot. "Meet me at Blue River Guest House. I'll be waiting. Don't waste time." She stared at the message, heart pounding. Her fingers shook. She typed and erased a dozen replies, but in the end, said nothing. When she returned to Mama Tenny's room, the doctor was there. "We have only 3 days left," he said quietly. "If the payment isn't made soon, we'll have no choice but to discharge her." That night, Sua sat beside her grandmother, holding her frail hand. "Mama," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I might do something you won't be proud of. But I don't know what else to do." Mama Tenny opened her eyes slowly. "What is it, my child?" Sua hesitated, then told her everything. About the phone call. The offer. The guest house. The old woman's eyes flared with pain, not just from her illness, but from sorrow. "No," she said, voice thin but firm. "You are not for sale. Not your body. Not your soul. Let me go, Sua. Let me die in peace, knowing I raised you right." Sua sobbed, shaking her head. "I can't lose you, Mama. I can't." But Mama Tenny looked away, silent. The next morning, Sua stood at the gates of Blue River Guest House. She stared at the tall white walls, her feet planted but her heart shaking. Her mind screamed at her to turn back. But she thought of her grandmother's smile, her warm hands, her soft voice saying, "You are my last gift." And with one final breath, Sua stepped inside. Inside the room, Chief Depot sat waiting. He smiled when he saw her. "You've made the right choice," he said, pouring himself a drink. "After tonight, you have the money. Your grandmother will live." Sua didn't respond. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clenched tight, her soul already miles away. That night, something inside her died. The next morning, Sua left the guest house before sunrise. Her steps were slow, her eyes empty. She clutched a brown envelope tightly in her hand. It held the money Chief Depot had promised, 400,000 naira, every note counting the price of her dignity. She didn't look back. She didn't even speak to him. There were no words left between them. Sua walked straight to the hospital and handed the envelope to the doctor. He was surprised by the sudden payment but didn't ask questions. He quickly scheduled the surgery. As the nurses wheeled Mama Tenny into the operating room, Sua stood in the hallway like a ghost. Her body was present, but her spirit had gone silent. Her heart screamed, but no one could hear it. She prayed, silently, hopelessly, that the sacrifice had been worth it. The surgery took hours. Sua waited outside, her hands locked in prayer, her head against the wall. Memories flooded her mind, Mama Tenny singing to her as a child, teaching her how to cook, warning her about men like Depot. She had broken every promise she'd made to her grandmother. But what choice did she have? The doctor finally came out. "She made it through the surgery," he said. "But she's very weak. We'll monitor her closely." Sua broke down, her knees hitting the cold floor as tears flowed freely. The money had saved Mama Tenny, for now. But deep inside, something else had broken, something she wasn't sure could ever be repaired. The next 2 days were quiet. Mama Tenny remained unconscious, hooked to machines. Sua sat beside her every moment, wiping her forehead, whispering prayers, waiting for her to wake up. Aramu visited, bringing food and sitting silently with Sua. He noticed something had changed in her. Her eyes had lost their light. "Where did you find the money?" he asked one afternoon, his voice gentle. Sua didn't answer. Aramu stared at her. "Did you go to him?" he asked, more firmly. Sua looked away. Aramu stood up slowly, his jaw tightening. Tell me you didn't. Still, she said nothing. I begged you not to, he said, his voice cracking. I told you I would find another way. Sua finally met his eyes. And if we waited, Mama would have died. But now I've lost you, Aramu whispered. Her heart twisted, but she didn't argue. Deep down, she had known this might happen. He left without another word. That night, Mama Tenny opened her eyes. Sua, she whispered weakly. Sua leaned forward, tears brimming again. Mama, you made it. Mama Tenny tried to smile. I felt you with me, even when I wanted to let go. Sua held her hand tightly, trying not to cry. But Mama Tenny's eyes saw through her. You did it, didn't you? She asked softly. Sua nodded slowly, her throat tight. I told you not to, Mama Tenny said, her voice filled with sadness, not anger. But I know you did it for me. Sua burst into tears, laying her head on the bed. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. Mama Tenny stroked her hair gently. You're still my child. Nothing can change that. They stayed like that for a long time, one weeping, the other forgiving. But fate had one more blow to deliver. By dawn, Mama Tenny's breathing grew shallow again. Her heart, already too weak, couldn't fight anymore. And just before the sun rose, she passed away, peacefully, her hand still wrapped in Sua's. Sua didn't scream. She didn't faint. She just sat there, broken, quiet, and alone. She had given everything. And still, she had lost. The sun was high in the sky when they buried Mama Tenny beneath the old mango tree behind their compound. The tree had stood for generations, its roots deep in the earth, its branches wide like the arms of an elder embracing the village. Sua stood beside the grave, silent, dressed in white. Her face held no tears now. She had cried everything out. All she had left was silence and guilt. Women from the village wept. Men lowered their heads in respect. Even the chief sent words of condolence. But Aremo, he didn't come. That evening, as Sua sat alone by the fire, the whispers began. Did you hear how she paid for the surgery? They say she met Chief Depot at a guest house. Such a shame. A bride-to-be, selling herself. The words were like knives. They slipped into the wind and stabbed her from behind. No one had proof, but gossip didn't need evidence. It only needed hungry mouths. The next morning, Aramu came. He didn't knock. He didn't sit. He stood at the doorway with pain written all over his face. I want the truth, he said quietly. Sua looked at him. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. Yes, she whispered. I went to him. I did what I had to do to save her. Aramu turned his face away, swallowing hard. You lied to me, he said. You promised you would never. I didn't lie, Sua interrupted. I begged. I waited. But no one came. She was dying, Aramu. And you didn't have the money. I was alone. Aramu's fist clenched. You should have trusted me. We could have waited. We could have found another way. Sua's voice cracked. There was no other way. You weren't the one watching her fade day by day. Aramu shook his head slowly. You gave yourself to him. His words hit her like a slap. Not because they were loud, but because they were cold. You think that's all I am now? She asked softly. A girl who lost her value because of one night. Aramu didn't answer. Tears welled in Sua's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Then you never loved me, she said. You only loved the idea of me. I can't marry you, Aramu said. Not after this. She nodded slowly. Then go. And he did. Days passed. Then weeks. Sua no longer stepped outside during the day. Children no longer greeted her. The same people who once praised her now avoided her like a plague. She packed her things quietly one morning. Her heart was too heavy to remain in Idera. She left no note. No goodbye. Only the mango tree behind the house knew where she had gone. She traveled far, walking from village to village, until she reached Eleren, a small town near the hills. There, she met Ayafanmi, a widowed baker with kind eyes and a warm voice. Ayafanmi took one look at her and said, "Your eyes carry a storm. Come inside, child. Rest." Sua didn't speak much. She helped around the bakery, kneading dough and sweeping floors. Slowly, the town came to know her not as the girl with a past, but as the girl who worked hard, spoke gently, and smiled only with her eyes. But deep inside, Sua still carried the weight of her sacrifice and the wound of Aramo's rejection. She had saved a life. She had lost her future. And yet, she was still breathing. She was still standing. And that, she thought, must mean something. The days in Elaren passed like quiet winds, soft, slow, and healing. Sua rose early each morning before the first cockcrow. She swept the front of the bakery, kneaded dough beside Ayafanmi, and served hot bread to the early workers. Her silence became her shield. She spoke only when needed. Laughed only in whispers. But with every loaf she baked, with every smile she gave to a hungry child, something inside her began to mend. Ayafanmi never asked about her past. She only said once, while brushing flour from Sua's cheek, "A broken pot can still carry water. Don't forget that." Those words stayed with her. After 3 months in Elaren, the people began to love her. They didn't care where she came from. They only knew she worked hard, respected elders, and gave food to those who had none. Slowly, Sua began to smile again, not just with her lips, but with her heart. One afternoon, Ayafanmi invited her to a women's gathering in the town square. Sua hesitated. "I'm not like them," she said. "They are respected. I am not." But Ayafanmi touched her hand. "Child, they need to hear you. They need to know they are not alone." So Sua went. The gathering was filled with women of all ages. Some laughed loudly, others held babies, and a few sat quietly like shadows. The theme was, the strength of a woman. When it was Sua's turn to speak, she stood slowly, her hands trembling. "My name is Sua," she said. "I was once a bride-to-be, until life demanded a price I wasn't ready to pay." She shared her story, not with shame, but with courage. She spoke of Momateni, the illness, the lack of help, the sacrifice, and the pain. She spoke of Aramo, the judgment, the rejection, and her decision to walk away. By the time she finished, many women were in tears. One elderly woman stood and embraced her. "You are stronger than many of us. You chose life for your grandmother. That is not shame. That is love." From that day forward, Sua became something more than just the girl at the bakery. She became a voice for forgotten women, girls who had been cast aside for their choices, for their mistakes, for the circumstances life threw at them. She and Ayafanmi started a small group to support women in crisis. They gathered every week to share stories, offer help, and lift one another. Word of the group began to spread. Soon, even women from nearby towns came. One evening, as Sua prepared to lock the bakery, a familiar voice called her name. She turned, and there he stood. Aramo. He looked thinner, older, and his eyes were full of something Sua couldn't place, regret. "Sua," he said quietly. "I've been searching for you." She didn't move. "Why?" "I came to say. I was wrong. I was proud. I judged you without understanding your pain." Sua folded her arms, steady now. "And now you understand? I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said. "But I want to ask for it." Sua studied his face. The man she had once loved stood before her, but she was not the same girl he had left behind. "I forgave you a long time ago," she said. "But I also forgave myself. And in doing so, I found my strength." Aramo looked down, his shoulders sinking. "I see that now," he said softly. "You've become more than I ever imagined." Sue gave a gentle smile. "Pain has a way of shaping us. But only if we let it." As he walked away into the evening mist, Sue felt no bitterness. Only peace. She had lost her name in one village. But in another, she had built a new one with her own hands. Years passed, and the name Sue came to mean something far greater than anyone had ever imagined. In the small town of Elaren, her story had become a beacon. What began as a support group turned into a foundation for women, a safe space where broken hearts came to heal, where shame was replaced by strength, and where silence gave birth to voices that could no longer be ignored. Women from across the region came to the house of Tenny, named in honor of the grandmother who had taught Sue that dignity was not something others gave, but something you held within. Inside the warm compound of the house, children played. Women laughed, cooked together, cried openly, and learned new skills. Some were widows. Some were survivors. Some had been abandoned like Sue once was. But none of them were alone anymore. And at the center of it all was Sue, calm, kind, and full of purpose. She still worked at Ayafonmi's bakery in the mornings, refusing to take a leadership title at the foundation. "I am not above anyone," she would say. "I am one of you." Then, one early morning, something unexpected happened. Chief Depo's eldest daughter arrived at the gate of the foundation. She was weeping. "My father passed away last night," she said. "Before he died, he called your name. He said, 'Tell Sue I regret everything. Tell her she was the one I could never forget.'" Sue stood still, her heart heavy but not angry. She simply nodded. "May he find peace," she said. There was nothing else to say. A few weeks later, during a large women's conference in a nearby city, Sue was invited as a guest speaker. She stood on the stage in a simple blue wrapper, her voice calm and clear. "People once called me many things," she said. "Some called me a fallen bride. Some called me a shame. But I stand here today not because I never broke, but because I chose to rise again." The hall erupted in applause. And in the crowd, sitting quietly at the back, was Aremo. He had come alone, carrying no expectations, only a quiet desire to see the woman he once loved become the woman she was always meant to be. After the event, he approached her. This time, he did not ask for forgiveness. He simply bowed his head. "I see now," he said. "Your strength could have lifted both of us. But I let my pride throw it away." Sue looked at him gently. "You were not ready to see me beyond your dream. But that's in the past now." Aramo smiled faintly. "You've become more than a bride. You've become a healer." She nodded. "And I carry Momateni with me in every step." They parted as friends, no bitterness, no longing, just peace. On what would have been her original wedding day, Sue returned to Idera for the first time. She stood under the mango tree beside Momateni's grave, holding a single white flower. "I built something, Mama," she whispered. "From the ashes. And it's changing lives." The wind rustled the leaves gently, as if the old tree itself was nodding in pride. Sue placed the flower on the earth and smiled, not with pain, but with pride. She had once been a virgin bride with dreams of marriage and a quiet life. But life had rewritten her story. She had faced shame. She had made the hardest choice. She had lost everything. And yet, she rose. Stronger. Wiser. Unshakable. And in the hearts of many, she became a legend.